Hey guys, NJ here, just with a quick look at my Taranis today, and also we're going to talk about a fix that I actually need to do to this one, which we will go through. It's an absolutely standard Taranis Plus on the EU LBT firmware. The only modifications that I have done to mine is I've used some fuel tubing, and as I'm an RC heli pilot, or used to do that an awful lot, I had lots of luminous fuel tubing lying around, and I just put it over, lengths of that over the switches, because it just makes them feel a little more tactile and kind of easy to grip and flick. Total personal preference, so yeah, that's one of the things I did. The other thing I have done is I've upgraded the speaker in here, just to make it a little bit louder. It's certainly nicer in noisy environments, and also because I like to listen to my music through my Taranis when I'm flying. That we will go through when we open it up. The last modification I did was I installed the S6 switch, which is this guy up here, and this is an official Taranis part. It's a 6-position rotary switch. There is an area to calibrate that once you install it, and it's again very straightforward, very easy to do. And you can use this for whatever you want, but for me, I used it to so that I've got somewhere to flick between all my music tracks. And then I also have my volume here.
Music off.
So that's how I have it set up, and I find that great for when I fly, and I can just, if after I've done a few warm-ups, if I want to start shooting a freestyle video, I'll usually stick some music on. And that is why I think there's a little bit of a rhythm to my flying. I don't know, you can tell me if you think that's present when you check out my freestyle vids. So the big thing we have to do here today, obviously for me, is this antenna here. I don't know if you can see, but it's pretty broken. It's gone at the hinge, and I've not even a clue when it happened or how it happened, but I just noticed one day it was kind of half hanging off, and I think there's just a couple of plastic lugs there that act as a retainer for that pivot point. They've gone. It's broken, and that's kind of the end of that, really. So what I've decided to do, as I would like to experiment with a couple of different antennas, is to pick up one of these. So it's the kind of standard SMA extension, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the old antenna out. I'm going to put the extension into this that leads up to there, and then I'll be able to screw on whatever antenna I fancy using, depending... Rear light engaged, okay. Whatever antenna I fancy putting on there, whether it be a patch, a 5 dBi, a 7 dBi, or the standard 2 dBi one that comes with it. You can get, obviously, whatever option you want to screw on there. So I think that'll be quite a nice little modification to do. So yeah, let's open her up and see what's inside. So I have removed the 6 screws on the back. These are all the same, and they're very easy to spot. You've got 2 down there, 2 there, and 2 at the top, and this has been designed to be very easy to get into and work on. There's nothing difficult about this at all. Take those 6 screws out. Now the only thing you want to do here when you pull this apart, let me just show you this. These 2 top 3-way switches up here, make sure that they go away with the front. Okay, so you literally these rotaries at the back here are going to come away with the back half. So I literally push away against these 2 and pull with these 2 like that, and then very carefully you can pull that apart, and you can see here there's the glorious insides of this transmitter. And you can see that's super easy, and look how they've laid these ribbons out. They're nice and long, they fold back easy. You can see this is designed to be just so easy to work on, so it was really nice to pull this apart for the first time when I did, probably 7 or 8 months ago when I started playing with it and upgrading it. Now, if you're going to work on one half in particular, it's far easier just to actually remove these ribbon cables, and there's so easy to see which round this goes, so you can't really get it wrong. You literally just pull back on these tabs here, and then that's it. You'll be able to pull those ribbons away, and then you do the reverse, push them right in, and then pull those little brown tabs back. And let me just take that a little closer so you can see. So it's these guys here, yeah, you'll push the ribbon cable in and then push back the retainer So take out each side, and that ribbon, these two ribbons will just slide straight out. So before we get on to that half with the antenna on it, let me just show you a couple of the things that I did here. So the first and foremost was I upgraded to this 8 ohm 2 watt speaker, which is considerably louder than the other one. The stock one that came with it was very diddy, and I know this looks a little messy around here, but what this is, I actually used some clear silicone to secure this speaker in. A couple of reasons. One, it just helps dampen any vibration that might cause a sort of a brittle glue to break away. It also means if this ever went or any problems with it, it's easy to peel this back and replace. So that worked easily. This was actually a kit, a 3D printed housing, and I got that off eBay. There are loads of these floating around on eBay. I'm sure you can find one that, you know, they're really cheap, you know, like probably $10 for you guys out in the States or less. You get the printed mounting kit, which brings it up to the diameter of this speaker, this 2 watt speaker, and then it was literally a case of soldering that in, and you can see it goes nice and neatly just wired onto this plug. So I snipped away the original and then resoldered with the correct polarity this speaker, and that was it. There wasn't anything too difficult about that at all. That was really like a 20-minute job at most. The other thing that I did, which I told you about, was the wiring in of the S6 switch, which will be on the back half. So let's take a look at that. And you can see here how this one is wired in. It's all very nicely labelled. The spare point at which that S6 switch will be wired in is just here on the board, and again you'll be able to see, because it's well labelled, which of those are the ground, power and signal wire to wire those three up. I then also added some heat shrink around here. I twisted the three wires together to make sure they're nice and low noise, this in keeping with the same way everything else here is all twisted up. And again, I used that tube of soft silicone and just ran a bead of it across the three contact points at the top, because I just want to make sure there's no kind of real exposed connections. I just feel like it's good practice. And then I had to set this in a little bit of an angle so that when it all went back nice and neatly, everything was snug. The only other modification you will need to make, obviously, is you need to drill the hole for that switch to go through. And I can't remember what the size of the drill bit was, but it's very obvious once you receive your switch in the post to see what size drill bit you need to make that hole. And you could choose, I mean, obviously I've wired it in on this side, which is where I wanted it. And it's right next to where that solder point is to connect it to the Taranis here. If you wanted, you could use longer wires and run it over to the other side, so you can put that switch wherever you can find space for it, really. But I certainly found it was nice to have it up there on the top. And then in terms of functionality, you can, like I said, I use it for selecting music, but you could use it for anything. You could use it to have different PIDs set up to try out, or, you know, as you know, when it comes to programming anything on a Taranis, the kind of the world's your oyster. So in terms of replacing this antenna, you can see here we are going to have to remove this section here, and it looks like that should be fairly straightforward, as we seem to have like some little retaining lugs there. So if I push those in, I'm sure that will quite easily push up into the middle, and then we can replace it with our new SMA block, which will go up inside there and poke out the top. And then you can see here that this wire goes down to this point, and this is under it looks like some hot glue under here, but what we'll be doing is peeling back that hot glue, and then you are literally wiring the core of this wire and the shield or ground of it, which should be apparent once we get that glue up, and it should be a pretty painless and quick job to do. And then we've got an antenna that's then modular, and we can swap to all the different SMA antennas we want to try out. So I shall get stuck in with doing that, and let's see where we get to. So as I was saying, we just needed to remove that little bit of hot glue, and I literally just picked at it and it came off in one piece. So that was very straightforward to do. So there's our hot glue done, and then you can see now, I'll just point that to you. So here's our antenna coming in. Okay, so we're going to be removing this. You can see there, this large blob here on the side will be the shielding, and then the very tip will be this center section here. This pad just to the left of it is, I believe that's also ground as well, so you could wire the shielding of that cable to either side quite easily, and then, as I said, just the main signal going to that little pad on the middle. So I'm going to set about removing those two, and then we'll continue. So there we go, the mod has been successful. That was pretty straightforward to do. It is quite a tiny piece to do the soldering on. It is a tiny little PCB point, but it's not difficult. If you need to, then use a helping hand with a magnifying glass just to make sure that it's nice and easy for you to see, but just keep your hand steady and it's a fairly straightforward mod to do. And I'm really pleased with the result. So I now have an antenna on here. This is the standard 2 decibel antenna, but I can put a 5 or an 8 or even a patch. I've got options to use whatever type of antenna I want with the internal RF module, so that's great. And if I ever break a joint on this, I just quite simply unscrew the old one and I can buy a new one of these and put that on. So that's I'm really pleased with the way that's turned out. That wasn't difficult to do at all. The one downside, which you do have to remember, as I'm sure of you have learned the hard way with your VTXs, this is a transmitter. It does need a resistive load when you turn it on, so you must not turn this on with the RF internal transmitter on. So if you have it in sim mode where you've actually turned off the function of the internal module, I'm sure that's okay. But if you are using the internal module and turning this on, supplying it power, you must not do so without an antenna attached. So that's the only thing you've got to remember. You have to get into the habit of putting this on before you apply power to your Taranis. That I don't find a problem. I'm very good with remembering things like that. So that is the only sort of caveat to this. But if you're happy to do that, then it's quite nice that you've got the benefit of changing this antenna to whatever it is you prefer. So I hope you enjoyed that. There's a couple of little tips and tricks in there, and I'll see you in the next one.